Hey everybody, how you doing today? It is the Greg on Motivational Monday. I am Jack to the highest Jackticity, honored and privileged to be before you. Honored and privileged, and yes, I'm thanking you that you're tuning in, or plugging in, I should say, because if you don't stay plugged in, guess what? You're not going to stay turned on. And I want to thank you for staying plugged in. This week we're going to talk about attitude, but before I get around to that, I want to just touch on something last week. The business athlete. I had an experience this week. I was at Toledo Hospital for a few hours, and everybody, all the nurses were like business athletes. Great attitudes. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking care of me. I love you all. It was a beautiful to see people just giving their best, you know, and to know that you had that kind of care coming to you. So I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good about feeling good, and I know you're feeling good about feeling good. And what are we going to talk about today? Attitude. We're going to talk about attitude. Yes. Your attitude determines your altitude, right? You've heard that before, I'm sure, right? You know, how high are you going to fly? How high are we going to fly this week? I like to think of, are you going to have a good attitude or are you going to have a great attitude? Because think about it. I always say the enemy of great is good. And I don't want to be a C. I don't want to have a C this week. I want to go to the next. I want to get an A. I want to get an A. So I want to have a great attitude. We all want to have a great attitude. We all want to have a great attitude. One of the components of having a great attitude is being optimistic. Being an optimist. And I believe for everybody. I believe for myself every day. We have to. Why in the hell would we get out of bed if we didn't? So we got to be optimistic. We got to believe. And we got to have that great attitude. And I just want to tell you a little story about a kid that was optimistic. I read this years ago. It was a funny little story. He went out in the backyard. He was going to play ball. Like every little kid, when he plays by himself, he's got the ball in one hand, the bat in the other hand, throws the ball up, and he swings, right? Before he does that, he tells himself, I'm going to be the greatest batter ever. I am going to be the greatest batter ever. Takes that ball, throws up there, swings, strike one. Strike one. So he picks the ball back up. Says it again. I'm going to be the greatest batter ever. He throws the ball up. He swings. Strike two. I'm thinking as I'm reading the story, where is this going? Grand slam, right? Picks the ball up again. I'm going to be the greatest batter ever. He throws the ball up. Strike three. Puts his hands on his hip. And he says, I'm going to be the greatest pitcher ever. I love that. That is optimism. That is being optimistic. Life ain't always going to give you roses. I always say you're either out of the shit, going in the shit, or coming out of it. But it determines your attitude as you go through it. How easy or how difficult it can be. And maybe you'll get out of it sooner that way. But the thing about it is why is it that it's more natural for us to be negative than it is to be positive? Why is it more natural for us to be negative than positive? I firmly believe it's the programming. I Googled a minute ago, how many times a child hears no a day? They said 400. I thought that was a large number. I really did. I thought that was a large number. But I'm sure it's up there. No. And then think about the commercials and all the millions of dollars they spend on programming us. Why do they do that? Why are they doing that? Because they benefit from it. They benefit from the negative. If you're focused on the negative, you can easily be sold. It's easier to sell a negative person than a positive person. It's harder. Yeah, it's definitely harder to sell a positive person. A negative person's easy. And so they spend billions of dollars on programming us to be negative. New idea comes out, negative. Something's going to change at the office, negative. It's always negative. So how do we keep a positive attitude in a world that's so negative? Well, you got to fight for those positive thoughts. You know what I mean? There's a battle going on up here. You got to fight for those positive thoughts every day, all through the day. You got to keep showing up. You got to keep showing up. Like I said, it's simple. I've said this many times. I'm going to say it more. You got to be thinking about what you're thinking about. You got to be paying attention to your emotions. But how do you do that? Because I know I leave the house back in the day, went to the JOB, and lost it as soon as I got in there after an hour. Just totally lost it after an hour. I was like, okay, foil. Well, number one, folks, you can start over anytime you want. But the negative thoughts are going to come, and they're going to tell you can't. But I used to go in the bathroom, and I restart my day many a times in the bathroom. Have a little talk with myself in the mirror. But yes, everything that happened. So how do we overcome that? I decided to put a rubber band on my hand for a while. I did that. Like they put on the wristband, what would Jesus do? I put a rubber band around my hand and around my knuckles, kind of like my fingers. And I would think, it would make me think about what am I feeling right now? What is my emotions today? What am I rehearsing right now? Is it positive or negative? What's my attitude? I'm just checking in. And I think the more you practice anything, remember, being disciplined. We're business athletes. We got to be disciplined. We're going to the next level. To be able to do that, you got to be disciplined. So you got to form some good habits. See, people that have bad habits have bad behaviors and bad habits. They just do. I don't know why, but it seems to be more often than not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to judge anybody. And I surely have a hell of a lot of bad habits myself. But it is. Bad attitude, creates bad behaviors. So, we have to understand there's an agenda for your attitude. And that's your attitude. Every day you're living your attitude. And we need to change that today. I want you to be happy. I want you to turn your life into a beautiful, living work of art. To me, the whole world is art. Everything I do is art. From making coffee to cooking to kissing, to photographing, of course. It's all art. To driving a car. There's art to driving a car. I've been in people's cars. They don't know how to drive. They scare the hell out of me. And I'm probably not that great of a driver myself, But I do keep both hands on the steering wheel, and I never. Let's get off the texting, folks. a little save your life stuff. Because you know what? Think about it. I want you to think about it this way. There would be a big gap if you were missing. There would be a big void in people's life if you were missing. The only time you're supposed to take your eyes off the phone, eyes off the road is when you sneeze. Ka-choo. So let's get our eyes on the road, 2 hands on the steering wheels, and let's have a great attitude. Let's steer towards that great attitude every day. Put a rubber band on your hand if you need to. Have your spouse check with you. Hey, how's your attitude today? Them are good. We could use the phone for so much good, but we use it for so much junk. How about having a partner? You go to the gym, having a partner. Don't you go to the gym and work out together? How about having a partner with a good attitude that checks on you once in a while? How's your attitude? One of the things I do, I tell you, I've been doing that box breathing. Because I have a friend once in a while who'll just text me, hey, man, breathe deep, breathe deep. You want to get that, you want to breathe deep, So I think that's great. And people that check on you, on your attitude, and see how life's treating you, it's very important to have that. But let's work on that attitude this week. Let's believe that's going to be a great attitude. It's going to be a great week. I'm really thank you for tuning in to Doug Gregg on Motivational Monday here at the studio. Check me out on Instagram, ghunter_photographer. Man, it's a lot of fun doing this art stuff. And like I said, everything in life is an art. And I want you to turn your life into a beautiful living work of art. Thanks for tuning in to my house, to yours. We love you. Ciao.